Hi guys! So I promised you guys I was going to do a video on weaning, and Lilia is officially fully weaned from the breast. And this is just about weaning from the breast, not about weaning from the bottle, because I don't really have much experience in that area. So this is just going to be weaning from the breast. First of all, I'm going to say that worldwide, on average, babies are usually weaned between age 2 and age 4. However, in the US, less than 20% of babies are still breastfed by the age of 6 months. So to me, that's really sad, because breastfeeding is obviously, for several reasons, and I have a video about that too if you want to go watch that, but it's extremely healthy for your baby and for yourself. I'm pretty sure that the reason the number is so low is because breasts have become more of sexual objects rather than feeding devices for infants, which is obviously the original purpose that they have. Like, that's what boobs are meant for. They're meant for breastfeeding. So, but now, especially in the US, they've become more of a sexual thing rather than a nutritional thing. And that really gets to people's heads. So now it's weird if you pull out your boob in public rather than pulling out a bottle, where in other countries it's weird if you pull out a bottle rather than pulling up your shirt. So first of all, I'm going to talk about how I did it. And how I did it, I don't recommend. Because of the circumstances that I'm in with Gabe in the custody and school and just everything going on, it was best in my personal situation to just go ahead and stop breastfeeding. And I did hold on to it for a year, because I would not let myself not breastfeed her for at least a year. So I did breastfeed her until she was a year old. I'm gonna go ahead and tell you guys the way I did it, just because I know that some of you guys are curious, but like I said, I do not recommend this at all. I don't recommend it. What happened with me is that she goes over, and I'll make a video about her going over to Gabe's house, but she sees Gabe like every other weekend and whenever he asks for her on the weekdays. As of right now, it's not a set agreement or anything, and we are trying to get a written agreement, but as of right now, that's kind of what it is. It's every other weekend and whenever he asks for her during the week. After she turned a year old, he had her for, I think it was like 3 days. She was over at his house, and when she came back here, I would always switch off. Like, when she was with him, he would formula feed her, and when she was with me, I would breastfeed her. So I would never give her formula. She would only get formula when she was with Gabe, because pumping just wasn't working for me anymore, because my supply was getting lower and lower and lower and lower, that I could pump out. I'd pump for like an hour and get an ounce. Like, that's how bad it was. So she was getting formula at his house, and she was getting breastfed here. So one of the times she came back, and usually she would she would know, like, she would come back and she'd know that it's breastfeeding. When she go with him, she knows the bottle. So, because she would never take a bottle from me. It was almost impossible to get her to take a bottle from me. And now she takes it very well from me. But she came back from Gabe's house one time, and she just wasn't interested. It's almost like she completely forgot, like, that I breastfed her, that I gave her the boob instead of a bottle. So I decided at that moment that I was going to go ahead and just switch her to the bottle, because she didn't remember like anything about the boob. So I was like, well, I guess this is the best time to kind of cut her off. That way it's just easier for her and easier for me, because she had already had the mindset that she wasn't being breastfed, and my boobs were already had such a low supply that I don't even know if I was giving her enough, which I know is, I'm not a very strong believer in I don't have enough milk for my baby. I know that it's very, very, very rare for you to not have a large enough supply for your baby, and I know it is possible, but it's not very common at all. It's not as common as people think it is. So anyway, she came back from Gabe's house, and basically I just decided that I was going to be done, and I was going to go ahead and start giving her a bottle instead of the breast. And ever since then, she's never asked for the boob, never done anything. She's just completely forgot. So that's what happened in my situation, and it is not what I recommend for anyone, because, well, my boobs, like, the reason I know I had such a low supply is because they have not become engorged. They haven't had an infection. They're just like normal now. Like, they never got bigger. They never got built up. No milk ever built back up inside of them. So I must have had a low supply, because usually if you cut off cold turkey like that, your boobs will become engorged. So I'm gonna go ahead and talk about the 3 different ways that the 3 different ways that I know of that you can start weaning your baby. Way number 1, you can cut it off cold turkey, which means you're breastfeeding, and all of a sudden one day you just stop. This is the number 1 way that I least recommend. And the reason that is because your breast can become engorged, your breasts may get an infection. It's hard on your body and the baby's body, because it's hard on your body because of your boobs. All of a sudden you're breastfeeding and supplying, and breastfeeding is a matter of supply and demand, and all of a sudden the demand gets cut. So your boobs will back up and they'll become engorged, and it'll be just a horrible situation. And also it's bad on your body because when you stop breastfeeding, the hormone level drops significantly, because when you breastfeed, your hormones are so high and you have so many different hormones going on. So when you suddenly stop breastfeeding, your hormones go from way up here to way down here, and that causes depression in a lot of moms, and that's just bad for everyone when the mom is depressed. And it's also bad on your baby because your baby is so used to digesting the breast milk. When you suddenly give them whole milk or formula or just rely on food, your baby's body doesn't know what to do because it's been so reliant on the breast milk. When it stops, your baby can become constipated, which when my mom cut my brother off cold turkey, he was 2, but she cut him off cold turkey. It was like the day after that she stopped, he became extremely constipated, and he actually had to get an enema. So it's very, very bad on the baby's body as well as your own. If it's a medical reason that you have to suddenly stop, I definitely suggest a second medical opinion. Doctors know a lot, but if you ask around, I guarantee that if you ask one doctor one thing, another doctor will say a different thing, because everyone knows that doctors are only humans and they only know what they've been taught. So I definitely suggest getting a second opinion if it's because of a certain medication or anything like that. The only reason that I know of where you have to stop and you really can't pick it up is if the mother is diagnosed with cancer. Way number 2 that you can wean your baby is slowly cutting down the feedings. And that's basically what I did with Lilia, because she would get formula with him and then be breastfed with me. So my boobs were slowly going down and down and down, and her body getting breast milk was slowly going down and down and down and down to where it eventually just stopped. This is still not the way that I recommend, and this is not the way I would have done it if I had stayed with Gabe, or if I had her, if I wasn't in school and stuff like that. It's still not the way I would have done it. However, it's a lot better than just going cold turkey. But if you do decide to do it this way, then make sure that you keep cutting feedings one by one. I think it's every week or month. It's however long you decide to start cutting your feedings. Slowly cut them one by one, and make the morning feeding the second to last one that you cut, and make the night feeding the very last one that you cut. So you want to keep going until you're down to just the night feeding, and make sure that that's the last one you cut, because that's the most emotional one, I don't really know how to explain it, but that's the one that your baby needs the most, that one and the morning one. And with that being said, I want to say that weaning should be a process, not an event. I know that the way, and after reading up on it and doing some research and stuff, I realized that when I said that I was going to stop breastfeeding at 1 year, I was kind of making it an event. I was saying, okay, when she turns 1 year old, that's when I'm going to stop breastfeeding. When in reality, you need to make it a process. And it needs to start with the very first time you give your baby solids or any other food besides breast milk. So the second you introduce them to something besides breast milk, that's when you need to start cutting down the breast milk. You can still breastfeed until your baby's 3 or 4 or however long you want to do it for, but that's when you need to start the process. So it's a long process. It's not just a 1 week thing or a 1 month thing. It's to do it effectively and to do it the right way, I guess. Well, not the right way, because everyone has their own different ways of doing it, but the best way, in my opinion, to do it is to do it over a long period of time. And the third and final way, and if I had a choice, I would have by far chosen this one, is to let your baby wean themselves. And I'm just going to say right now, you'll get tons of unsolicited advice saying that you're doing it for selfish reasons. And first of all, I want to say it's impossible to breastfeed a baby for selfish reasons, because, it's nearly impossible to get a baby that doesn't want to breastfeed to nurse. If you don't believe me, then try it. If your baby doesn't want to breastfeed, it's not going to breastfeed. So it's impossible to do it for selfish reasons. And because there's so many benefits, there's continuing benefits for the baby and for yourself. So it's not just for selfish reasons. That's just ridiculous. And this is what I heard numerous times when I said that I was going to keep breastfeeding. I heard so many different times from so many different people that if I kept breastfeeding, then the baby was going to become hopelessly dependent on me and is not going to want anyone else, and they're just going to be a totally mama's girl or mama's boy or whatever you have, and that if you keep breastfeeding, that baby's going to be so attached to you that you're not going to be able to get it off of you, blah, 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 blah. And that's not true. There's actually so much, and I know a lot of people don't go off of research and a lot of people don't go off of statistics and stuff, but another thing I want to talk about, and I want to make like a video about this or something, is that statistics are real life people with real life babies with real life situations. Statistics is only documenting it. It's documenting real life people, real life situations, real life everything, and people don't believe it. So when they say, well, why don't you go off from experience and blah, 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 statistics is from experience. It's from other people's experiences put into numbers. That's basically what statistics are. So statistics and experience shows that if you breastfeed your baby until the baby is ready to wean itself, they will be significantly less dependent on their mothers because their security needs will have been met as an infant. So I think it's called and when I took my child development class, there was a word for it. It wasn't autonomy. It was I forget what it was called, but there's a certain level that you need to reach for your baby to know that it will be cared for the rest of its life. And if you breastfeed your baby until the baby's ready to be done breastfeeding, it is proven that your baby will be less dependent on the mother and more ready to move on to different relationships throughout their whole entire life, because all of their security needs will have been met already when they're a baby. So that's some interesting facts that I wanted to share with you guys, because I know a lot of you guys were in my situation where you had people telling you things like, oh, it's not good to keep breastfeeding and blah, 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 blah. Well, that is a proven fact right there, is that your baby will be less dependent on you. When they get older, anyway. With age, they'll be less dependent on you, rather than babies who were not breastfed. And of course, that's in general. That's not every single person in every single situation. And I've said this so many times, and I'm just going to emphasize it again because I know I have a lot of people that watch my videos. But I'm not against formula feeding at all whatsoever. I am a 100% supporter of you knowing what's right for your family. So I'm just going to put that out there because I'm not by any means against formula feeding. This is just the information that I've picked up and what I believe in for my family. So I do not mean to put down anyone who formula feeds, because that's not my intention. This is just for support for people who do breastfeed. So I'm gonna go ahead and put that out there, because I don't hate you if you formula feed or if you bottle feed. That's ridiculous. I would never. I'm 100% all for the mother knowing what's best for their family. And I'm just trying to give you guys some insight for making those decisions of what's best for your family. So those are the 3 main ways that you can wean your baby from breastfeeding. And like I said, I fully recommend the last one, the letting your baby wean itself. And just know that it may seem like you're breastfeeding forever, but your baby will wean itself. There will be a day when your baby doesn't want it anymore. That's how life works. They're not going to want it forever. So it might feel like it, but they're not. Like, my friend weaned her baby, and the baby ended up self-weaning. I think it was at 13 months or 14 months. So some people, and my mom, I don't really know how my mom did it or anything. My mom said that I self-weaned at 9 months, but I don't know, I don't really know, I wasn't there, so I don't know, but according to my mom, I self-weaned at 9 months. Your baby can wean at any time. They could wean before a year, they could wean at 2, because my brother was still going strong at age 2, so it just completely depends on, your whole situation. But it will come to an end, I promise. So I have more notes about it and stuff, but I'm going to go ahead and cut it off there because I pretty much summarized everything. And now I'm going to move on because I've gotten a lot of suggestions talking about the girls.